Good day, everyone. I am glad to present my research presentation, a technological pedagogical tool for learning the singular language in multicultural Australia for this academic community. This research discussion is driven from a wider context which concerns pronunciation variation of the migrant children who are learning Sinhala as a second language under the influence of English in Australia as a part of my work in progress PhD research at the University of Kelaniya in Sri Lanka. Multicultural Australia encourages language diversity by setting its national policies and educational guidelines for cultural inclusiveness while promoting ethnic language identities, as shown in the ABS Census 2016. One-fifth of the population of Australia spoke languages other than Sinhala at their home. As a migrant mother, I've made more opportunities for my children who were born in a dominantly English-speaking country to acquire my mother tongue, Sinhala language, in a dual language environment. I made my personal choice on a few grounds, including my socio-linguistic influences from the Sinhala language. In addition, nationalist ideologies also played a key role. First-person experience and ABS data reflect the condition that learning one's parent's language as a second language or simultaneous language can be a natural or forceful process among Australian-born children who are born to overseas-born migrant parents. Oppositely, through my observation, I have witnessed that some parents from similar language backgrounds only encourage their children to speak in English and provide more opportunities to be in an English-speaking environment for their early childhood. As the arguments of some theorists such as Sumner, 2014, this may be due to the idea that bilingualism delays child development and causes parents to delay learning their mother tongue. ABS also indicates that English is the main language spoken at home for the people born in Australia. It indirectly indicates how the English language influences language speakers who were born in Australia with their other ethnic language backgrounds. According to D. Hoover, 1998, bilingual first language acquisition, BFLA, is the acquisition of two first languages from birth. Guittardo and Grant, 2008, argues the proficiency of the two languages can be shown at different levels. Research of the National Center for Research on Cultural Diversity and Second Language Learning, 1998. Simultaneous acquisition of the first two languages begins at the age of 3, and language acquisition at an older age is called successive acquisition of the second language. Hoover identifies this acquisition as the monolingual first language acquisition of only one language from birth, as well as from early second language acquisition, where originally monolingual children start to hear a second language regularly during their childhood, usually through daycare or preschool further. Further, the two languages are acquired simultaneously. De Hoover prefers to call them language A and language alpha instead of language first and second language, 2009. For this research, I observed the sound articulation of children in Sinhala migrants in the Sinhala language learning process at the Victorian School of Languages, Melbourne, Australia, from May 2017 to December 2018. In most cases, I have observed when children articulate their parents' language pronunciation, differentiation can be noticed compared to the received pronunciation. It can be the reason that there is an influence of a dominant language. Applying Fledge and Hillenbrand's view, 1984, theoretically, I can argue that it can be very difficult for language learners of a second language to get rid of the phonetic effects of the first language, and sometimes impossible for a lifetime, unless the language learner can process both languages since birth. De Hoover, 1998. The ideal achievement of learners from the perspective of language teaching is that the learner would be able to pronounce much closer to the received pronunciation. In recognizing the speech pattern of the learner and pronunciation variations other than the received pronunciation could be employed as the main process of teaching language too. At this present situation, the Victorian School of Languages does not operate any linguistic auditory analytical methods of language teaching, whereas phonological analysis, computer-based programs are applied to compare the phonemic structures of language 1 and language 2. Though there is a debate for utilizing visual articulation feedbacks for correctives, Schwartz, 1993, Triscott, 2007, I propose multimodal analysis can be positively constructed for the teaching learning process or feedback with visual, auditory, reading, and kinesthetic bark, multisensory, the verbotonal theory of perception, Gubrina and Asp, 1981-2013, generally applied more than the hearing impaired subject as optimal language input more functionally helps to memorize ideal patterns. Lian, 1980, 2004, 2011, 2014. In addition, auditory recognition through hearing, such as changes of pitch, rhythm, and intonation via low frequencies, can be sensitive factors in teaching and learning the second language. This research specifically questions how spectrogram as a technological, pedagogical tool can be employed for teaching Sinhala in Australia. I have compared the phonemic inventory of English and Sinhala. In searching those contents of Sinhala and English speech sounds were compared based on the data from Mandel and Cox 2006, Georgi 2004, Rajapaksa 1994, and data from my previous research on Sinhala adult migrants' second language acquisition in an English language environment, Penahetipola 2011. The sound variations and similarities of both languages are later positioned in a new phoneme inventory. Through the phenomenological research approach, from my observation at the Victorian School of Languages, I have identified variable usage of singular speech sounds, segmental features, and suprasegmental features through auditory analysis of phonemes and morphemes. From both preliminary analysis, nasals and fricatives were identified and hypothesized as the most noticeable substitutes. Then, words and sentences were selected to reflect the identified consonant sounds, which were recorded when the research participants, children of Sinhala migrants in Australia who studied the Sinhala language in grade 5 to 8 at the Victorian School of Languages in Australia, with their parents' consent, pronounced the given words later. The recordings were analyzed with Pratt analytical software. The first dataset from the recording also compared with the second dataset similarly records the same words and sentences pronounced by children of Colombo in the same grades who speak Sinhala as their first language. In this research presentation, I limit my example to nasal sounds. In Australian English, there are 3 nasal sound units: Macquarie Dictionary, 1997, Cox and Palatal, 2007. In comparison with Sinhala, though there are 6 nasal sounds represented in the alphabet, 4 nasal sounds can be identified. The palatal voice nasal sound is unique to Sri Lankan Sinhala, Rajapaksa, 1994. The uniqueness of palatal nasal sounds cannot be substituted and are used in the middle and beginning of words as examples of Manyokka. In this WIP research, I incorporated visual feedback based on spectrograms with auditory feedback for creating computer-generated virtual spaces. I also suggest vowel consonant-based audio-visual correction feedback must be created for each individual. This is technological, pedagogical practice for teachers to be able to understand both audio-visual variations of individual learners compared to the received pronunciation standards. For example, the word Manyokka I display in this presentation has 3 consonants, M and N and Ny, set at the beginning of the word. Though nasal sound airflow makes less energy flow, Australian speakers who are unable to find the correct consonant replace the palatal nasal sound near with palatal voice approximants year or front closed vowel sounds e. Then I suggest audio-visual correction maps or guidelines can be created for the individual learner. In addition, learners can be given a vague multisensory experience as feedback in a language laboratory setting or individual workplace at their convenience. This research suggests a useful guideline for the second language learning and learning process as well as phonological analysis of learning the singular language under the interference of English language. Thank you.